Here with Devon Kerr, USL head analyst. Is that a fair role to give you? A master, probably the biggest, most recognizable face inside the USL ecosystem across the North American landscape. Devon Kerr, welcome to what is probably a brand new segment of sitting at tables eating food with soccer experts. I don't know what we're going to call this, but welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I would start with number one. Technically, my title is lead analyst. However, I think I'm going to have to steal the head word and work that into the contract. It carries more pomp and circumstance.
Do you and Mike ever have to go toe-to-toe on, because you can't have two leads, right? Have you guys ever argued who's the one?
There's the lead analyst, and then he's the voice, you know? Obviously, it's like, we got to get some tape done. You send him in. It's more like, do you want quality? You go with Mike. If you want someone who's just going to stand there and look pretty, usually then I get the call, you know? Just speak less and just hang out.
Well, Mike chose not to answer the call and come today and have this food. We're here at Dune Brothers right now, making sure that the bees don't attack our food before we do, and wanted to talk about El Clamico, talk about this derby. Couldn't think of a better opportunity besides than having clams and some of the best seafood here in Rhode Island. Got to start things off with you first and foremost. You've thrown some shade both states' directions on who has the best seafood. We're trying to bribe you here very much right in front of your face. Do you want to change your answers? Do you have a definitive yet ahead of this match this weekend?
Of course, it's Florida. My home state, obviously. Listen, I don't have a definitive answer. I am very much of the belief that you can change my mind at any point in time on anything, right? Like, I like good food. You know, we talked about it before coming on air that there are a couple of things that you don't mess with in my life. Food is one of them. Equal opportunity employer. I'm open to try anything, and I won't pass judgment, we'll say.
Well, you know what? It might not be the right answer, but it's an acceptable answer nevertheless. It's so great to have you here in the state of Rhode Island ahead of this match this weekend. It's a big match. Not only is it the derby, but it's the first time CBS is going to be covering this game at now Centerville Bank Stadium. Big event for soccer in North America. If you were to kind of dial in exactly what this means to you on a personal level and what this means to the growth of the game overall, what would you rate this as?
I don't view this as a personal level for me, only because I care about the league so much. So to me, it's always about continued growth and recognizing that the conversation I'm going to reference is behind enemy lines with Brendan Burke and Hartford Athletic. We interviewed him this week for USL All Access, and we were joking during the show and said, man, we've come a long way. And that wasn't about our individual journey, but in 2018, when I personally decided to attack broadcasting full time, Brendan Burke was the head coach of Bethlehem Steel. That's Philadelphia Union's second team. They've since changed their name. They're always known as Bethlehem Steel.
Always will be.
Always
will be.
All-time winningest team in Open Cup history. Look it up.
Fall River Marksman may argue with that with an asterisk, I believe.
No, that's not how this works. That's not how this works. Obviously, look it up on Wikipedia. Nothing ever is wrong on that page. So, all jokes aside, I said, look at how far we've come, because in 2018, he's coaching a team, two-team or not. He's on the sidelines at a local small college, and their bench is literally a pop-up tent behind the stands. And tomorrow, is that what day it is?
It'll be Saturday. This
2 days.
Tonight.
There we go. 10,000 plus fans. I mean, that's how far we've come. Scratching the surface of that a couple of years ago, sure. Of course, there was FC Cincinnati back in the day. New Mexico United regularly started to push those numbers, but now you're having that conversation for multiple teams around the league, and then you get this incredible shiny new penny, right? In this ridiculous stadium that has been put together. It's a necessity for all clubs, long term, but the fact that you get a team right out of the gate who throws its weight around, Eastern Conference title, loses in the final, doesn't matter. You get the stadium, you get the fan base, and now you have so much within all this that it's hard to say where it ranks as an individual experience, because to me, you have to package it together in a long-term vision, and you have to keep seeing the vision of what is the next step for this league.
So then decompartmentalizing that from both the derby and the overall performances, starting with the performances of both of these clubs, I look at one right now, both of them below the playoff line, not where either one wants to be. I did listen to the Brendan Burke interview on USL All Access. I also listened to his post-game last night from Tampa Bay. doesn't seem to be in the happiest kind of state of mind with his players currently, looking for something somewhere. He wasn't quite ready to say looking outside. I think we know that Hartford's roster is one of the most minimalist in the league. But when you look at these two teams' forms, first and foremost, Rhode Island FC, I have to admit it, I hate to say it, but we're definitely in a sophomore slump right now. There is something that, this team is trying new things. They're in a possession-based system, made some key acquisitions that don't seem to have quite lit the fire under this group just yet. But then Hartford Athletic, it seems like it's the same old broken record. On the outside, in the basement right now in terms of league standings. They've, usually failed to get into the playoff hunt. Came close last season, but kind of still it feels like there's just paddling water in that same boat that they've been in all the time. How important for these two teams is this performance on the weekend, independent of a derby? These teams have to go through each other to get up the table, get up the ladder. What's at stake here for these groups?
There's different levels to it, right? It's the CBS game, it's the brand, right? Everybody's going to see it on national television. USL Championship continues to push the numbers when it hits linear television, pushing beyond that threshold, right? It was 100,000, 200, now it's 3, 4 regularly. That's the first part and the continued build of the brand. The second part is it's a rivalry match, right? You and I were talking about this ahead of time in terms of distance between teams. This is the closest proximity between any two teams in USL Championship. And whether it's food or players or development based upon the region, that's already pre-existing. Right? Like there were things coming up when, walkers were still around, and I used them to get around the field, obviously. I still need one now, by the way.
How's the knee, by the way?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Walkers behind the scenes. But, there were things there that it didn't matter if I'd never experienced it before. I got there and I was a part of it. And so that's what you get with the rivalry. To your point, though, this is right around the time last year where Rhode Island started to pick things up, okay? And Hartford Athletic, I will say that I do believe stylistically, statistically, that they have gotten better. There's a mentality issue within that locker room, and we can address that. You mentioned Brendan Burke's comments. You have to give yourself some sort of springboard because eventually you're going to run out of runway. It's that simple. And where these teams are at, certainly Hartford in a much worse off position considering standings, though not that far behind. And the Eastern Conference on that playoff line is much more congested now than what we saw a couple of weeks ago. You have to get a game that says, okay, we did that, we can do anything. Sometimes it's a rivalry game like this. Sometimes it's against the best team in the Eastern Conference or the Western Conference. But you have to start somewhere. And also with the understanding, to me, this is also a very important part. You have 4 games less to do that this year. They've instituted Jaeger Cup into the schedule. That makes up the extra 4 to get to 34. So you're actually just over the halfway point. The point of no return is fastly approaching.
When you think about this on the optics side of it, separating it from the performances, this is a rivalry. This is two states that, for the most part, don't like each other. There's been some great USL promos that have come out over the last few days, kind of highlighting the origin of El Clamico. Hoping to hear you and Mike also be able to say that on the CBS broadcast. But when you look at it for these two teams fighting for more than just 3 points on the weekend, how have you seen rivalries? I mean, you've been in this gig for a long time. I don't want to date you here, but you've seen a lot of things. How do you rate this emergence of this rivalry of El Clamico compared to other rivalries that maybe are better derbies within the USL and maybe even further out in the North American landscape?
Like, the good news is proximity is also always something that helps, right? So you start there. You can work in the fun banter, if you will. We referenced food earlier between the two cities. That's going to help. The biggest thing that's going to help this is winning. There's no denying anything else that winning matters, right? So if you look historically at the great rivalries that have been or currently are in this league, right? Louisville and Charleston. We're 3 years removed from the Charleston Battery having the worst season in the history of their existence.
You wouldn't know it now.
You wouldn't know it now. No one's talking about it because of what Ben Pierman, Lee Cohen, all those guys have been able to do, right? Louisville City is always the standard bearer. It's hard to believe that would ever go away. But they're not rivals with everyone. It's basically who is pushing them to the next threshold. Who's making them continue to evolve and get better. Both on and off the field, to be fair, right? Like, check out our new stadium. Oh, by the way, we have a training facility. And look at our transfer market budget. And look at our supporting cast. So wins matter. Western Conference is very similar. It does make you wonder a little bit in terms of success within the league. For me, given how tight that window is in the Eastern Conference, we're not going to see, more than likely, we're not going to see Rhode Island or Hartford end up in a top 4 spot. Now, mathematically, anything's possible. But it does make you wonder, because of regionally how close they are, and because of similar opponents, it does make you wonder if that fight for a last playoff spot comes into play. Or even the two of them getting in.
It almost
right?
gives it a playoff relegation battle.
Absolutely. Yeah. And obviously the news announced earlier this year that USL is going to Pro Rel. And so eventually you are going to have the idea of, yes, right now, Pro Rel, sure, you get in the playoffs, we don't. How about the year after that? And the year after that?
Well, good thing that's why Jägermeister Cup was invented, right?
And the biggest thing that people need to understand, that front offices will mortgage everything to be able to get a win out of, this is still a business. This is still a business driven by financials, driven by the fans. The more fans you put in the seats, the more money you make. The more money you make, the more you can spend on the team. The more you spend on the team, in theory, the more successful you're going to be.
Speaking of fans, speaking of attendance, it's a perfect segue into looking at how Centerville Bank Stadium, newly christened this season, has expanded fandom with Rhode Island FC now at about a 99% increase if you look at the statistics, and knowing that Burns Stadium, about 5,000, now at 10,000 capacity at Centerville Bank Stadium. Meanwhile, on the Hartford side of things, they've said that they need an expanded infrastructure to be able to bring in those larger crowds and also to kind of weatherproof the stadium. Talking about Centerville Bank for a second here, how important has this stadium become as a crown jewel in the USL soccer system? Obviously, we hear more stadiums coming online, but is this the blueprint? Like, I look at between this stadium, I look at Colorado Springs and probably Lynn Family with Lou City. It's kind of like, if you're going to come into the league now, it's got to be one of these three. Does this stadium bear a significance into the match this weekend? Is this going to be an X factor for Rhode Island, despite that they haven't won too many games?
No, I'm with you. I think you hit the nail on the head. Listen, everybody wants a place to call their home. You know, I referenced Brendan Burke earlier with Bethlehem Steel playing at Lehigh Valley, and their locker rooms were a pop-up tent. I'm not exaggerating, by the way. The footage exists, right? And it doesn't matter what players he was, developing, which the list was insane. They walked off of the field and stood behind metal bleachers, which is fine, but underneath a tent. That is not acceptable. It's not acceptable in general, yet alone in this day and age. If you do not want to be looked at as a minor league, then don't behave like that, right? You invest. You invest in the stadium. You invest in training facilities. And most importantly, and I talked about it earlier when it came to financials, you invest in the fans.
Absolutely.
Right? You give them a reason outside of the team to come. You give them an emotional bridge that they feel, if the team wins the Eastern Conference, if the team barely gets into the playoffs, and if the team finishes the bottom of the East, you need to give them a reason to come back. Relatability, right? So you've got this incredible stadium with an opportunity for everybody to get good food, meet good people. I love the Northeast. Everybody's so nice-ish. There's an asterisk behind that. That will remain for off-camera comments. But all jokes aside, you have the ability to give people a reason to want to go to a game. How do you grow this? You grow this by success, right? Success comes in a wild variety of fashions. When it comes to linear television, optics. Everybody sees how nice something looks, how organized it is. Oh, look at all the fans that are there. You need to instill belief outside of the USL ecosystem for people that are watching on television to go, that looks fun. So the next time they come to whatever community it is, if it's Louisville, if it's Rhode Island, you can name a couple of other stadiums, that they have a reason to venture outside of the norm to go and experience what that community has been able to provide.
We talked with leadership within the USL last year when the first CBS matches were announced in 2024, and they had specifically said they were only targeting the infrastructure that was going to amplify the image of the league, the brand. Yep. It was going to increase the awareness. This seems more like the same. Overall, you're a big part of these CBS productions, these match coverages. How have you seen the growth of CBS's involvement, and do you see it continuing and pushing even further with these future conversations about the Premier League concept and all of the evolution of this, most important 2-year corridor of soccer here in the States?
So there's two parts to it for me. I would say the first part is if we stay localized within an individual game production, right? So we're talking about Rhode Island and Hartford tomorrow. I have seen incredible growth. And the reason I say that is if we start from the first one last year in Louisville, that was Louisville Indy in early April. It was very hands-on by CBS, and it should be. This is a major network who is allowing this entity that they have never worked with before to come on to national television. I would be not delegating at all, and I would be looking at everything going, you're going to do this and you're going to do this because we know how it's done. I don't see that anymore. I think a real establishment of trust has been put in between the two parties. And at the end of the day, for whatever show is going on television, what are we? We're storytellers, right? Now there's a game and understanding, being respectful because we love the passion of the game, but our job is to tell stories.
Right.
They have given us such an incredible runway to be able to do that. So whether it's talking about the food or the bios of the players or the journey of Rhode Island over the last 18 months now, that to me was a little bit more stringent in nature compared to now, where the trust has been established and they allow it. I would say the second part of it isn't a knock, but more so a request, not just with CBS, but everybody around this league. This cannot be about one linear game. It cannot be about a couple of linear games a year. This has to be about conversations like this. It has to be about other announcers, other teams, supporters groups. The outreach has to continue to grow. The knowledge has to continue to grow. We still operate within a league where if you ask Monterey Bay what's going on in Rhode Island, that's a very difficult answer for them.
It's compartmentalized.
And it's great that we have sustained success in both Eastern and Western Conference, but we have to now bridge that into one family. We have to educate fans so that we have the ability, when people sit down, you can spout off stats, you can talk about tactics, and you can tell, again, I go back to the random passerby who's gonna fly into town to go see a game. You gotta be able to communicate, right?
Right.
Communication is everything. So when you put those two key points together about continuing to outreach, but also the trust that has been given, those are the two biggest keys for me that CBS has really enabled us to do, but where we need to continue to grow.
Do you see the Jägermeister Cup being kind of the future of that olive branch, bridging the communities together? Right now it's a very regional concept, but as the league grows into these three divisions, you could see some storylines develop. You could see some awareness between all of the levels of the pyramid. Is that the Jägermeister Cup's responsibility, or is it to protect things like this derby when Rhode Island FC goes to Division I and Hartford just can't quite get there because they're Hartford Athletic?
That's a difficult question, and here's why I say that. That rivalry has to exist no matter what, right? So that's within the two groups. Your relevance is established somewhere, but then you have to maintain it. In terms of the cup competition, I love it for two different reasons, and it's sustainability of rivalries, yes, but the competition that you get out of it, seeing different teams, different locations, different levels, organizations have utilized it in such a wide variety, right? So if we look at Rhode Island FC right now, who have underperformed to the fans' liking, certainly to the coaches' liking and the players' liking, in league play. They're kind of the top of the heap right now when you look at Jaeger Cup, right? So there's the confidence, and you're looking for goals. You've gotten some there, right? The Portland game, great example, just a couple of matches ago. That can give you belief to continue to push through. It also gives you the opportunity from a scouting standpoint, whether within your own organization, let me get players reps, let me get them minutes, let me get rest. And then it gives me, from a scouting standpoint, a little bit more of a reminder of what Open Cup gives people the chance to do. When you see all these different teams and all these different players, I can't tell you the umpteenth amount of times that I've seen coaches go, he ripped us to shreds, and you're coming to play for us. Or, oh yeah, I remember that guy, and they bring him in trial at the end of the year.
I mean, that's literally how Joe Brito came aboard
Right?
Rhode Island FC
Right?
from his Omaha story with Open Cup.
Yeah, it just gives you so many different opportunities. And, I do wonder long-term what it looks like in terms of growth for Jaeger Cup. Selfishly, I wanted to hit the ceiling, right, and then push through it. I think they have a real opportunity right now, considering a little bit of uncertainty within U.S. Open Cup, right? We've seen the format change a couple of times, and I love Open Cup. I've called the final twice. I'm very proud of that. I've played in the competition. It's near and dear to my heart. But there is certainly a divide between MLS and U.S. soccer, all the entities involved, to be fair. So that doesn't exist right now with Jaeger Cup. Jaeger Cup has a clear vision, which is about opportunity, excitement, action. The two wild card teams, the tiebreaker to get into the final 8 positions is most goals scored. That is unreal. It doesn't matter what your home or away was. Put it up, right? And make it enjoyable for the fans, because at the end of the day, goals win games. Defense win championships, and I'm all about that. But goals win games. I mean, and tomorrow, we're going to get an opportunity to go on Golazo and break this down. There are 38 teams in this tournament. 30 are still alive. You cannot convince me that that's not interesting.
I can't understand how Rhode Island FC hasn't at least even clinched the wild card, considering we've scored 10 goals and we have all of this momentum behind us, yet we don't yet have a clinched position at all in it. So I want to wind things down and talk specifically about the performances of this match this weekend. Tactically set up. Coach Cano did some major chop and change. We saw a formation that we had never seen before last week. It's been perplexing. We're going to talk about it at length a little later tonight, but it confused everyone that I know. We're going into it now with all of this change, lots of players returning healthy. Brendan Burke's side, like I said, he said that the roster's been depleted at times. He feels like it's one of the tiniest rosters in the league when it comes to the resources he has, but he's put faith in some of these players. I look at this as Cano Smith still experimenting and Brendan Burke relying on 2 to 3 key players, maybe specifically the wing overloads, to do damage to each other. How do you see this game shaping up?
I think you're on the right track. I would say that it's certainly an attacking defensive conversation for me, and that's not dismissing any other areas of the field, but the consistency, and I'll use that term lightly because it hasn't been overly frequent for Hartford, just more frequent recently. Their attack is better than any area on the field for them. And the reason is they've opened the game up. It's a very similar conversation to what you see out of the Pittsburgh Riverhounds and Bob Lilly, even lacking quality, where they've conceded a little bit more possession, which is fine, but the speed that they have on the front line, you mentioned 2 or 3 players, they're all higher up on the field, they open the game up, they like to counterattack. To me, if Hartford continues that, which I don't see why he's going to change, if you open the game up and you want to play in transitional moments, 2 things have to occur. You have to be willing to absorb deep defensively, or 2, you have to be willing to push and fight into that space. Now, the spatial conversation doesn't really benefit Rhode Island because from a tactical standpoint, possession, they haven't done well with it. They haven't been key when the opportunities has presented themselves moving into the final third, which to me, you have to be able to absorb. Because if you make if you make Hartford break you down in a smaller area, they cannot do it, plain and simple. You condense the field, you make the windows tighter to operate through, you take away the biggest assets that they have, and then you make them defend in transition. Rhode Island has to be brave to open it up a little bit, but there are players within this team that can certainly do it. We saw it last year, right? A lot of familiarity within this roster. I would still maintain that you got to get Albert Dequa, J.J. Williams healthy on the same page at the field, find success at the same time.
Interesting you say J.J. Williams, definitely probably an X factor in this match, whether he starts or as a late minute sub. I look at the same way. Not sure yet if Jack Panayiotou is going to be available, but you know that if he is selected on the game day roster, he'll be itching to score against his former Loney team. But I want to talk about the goals specifically. These 2 teams seem anemic when it comes to responding and chasing games. I look at Rhode Island FC, where they've avoided defeat in 19 matches where they've scored first. Hartford has been undefeated when they've scored in 11 games now in a row. So both of these teams have an established track record when they're able to get the ball in the net first. But outside of that, Rhode Island FC's only led 4 times this year. Hartford's only led 2 times this year. They can't close out games. They can't catch up in games and at least secure all 3 points a majority of the time. Is it going to come down to which one of these teams scores first, and then that's kind of, no matter how many goals come afterwards, that's going to be kind of the show?
You asked me earlier about how important the game was, right? To find success, we can sit and talk, and I'll come back to it about tactics all you want, and I'm with it. That's my favorite thing about matches, right? Probably to a fault at times. But the premise of the game, to me, runs deeper in the sense of, how bad do you want this? How bad do you want to be the rivalry winner in that stadium? That badge means something, no matter what club you play for. And for everybody at home that kind of thinks, oh yeah, we get it, sport was founded on one thing and one thing only, and it was pride, right? It was that when you stepped on the field, when you stepped on the court, doesn't matter what sport you were playing, you weren't going to be better than me. I think both of those teams lack a lot of pride and character right now. I think they lack the ability that when their backs are up against the wall to go and chase a result. The seed of doubt continues to creep back into their mind. So if they concede first, oh, here we go again, right? Here we go again. We're not going to do it. The numbers are stacked up against us. I don't believe that that's something that should be long-term for a group. Now, there are a wide variety of reasons as why that's situated right now. Right? There are reasons why it's implanted within Hartford and Rhode Island. But you still have to find a way to say, that's at A. We were the ones who won El Clamico. like the name or not, and I love it. Like we were the ones who did it, right? That means something. It means something that we got that win that got us 1 point closer. That said, you know what? We can go and keep moving up the Eastern Conference. And for all the Rhode Island fans, I would be quick to remind everybody that I love the passion, I love the support. This is still a large majority of a group that turned a lot of heads last year and made a run to the title game. That's still within them. I'd make the argument the roster's probably better, right? Hartford Athletic, roster's better than last year. Brendan Burke always jokes, we may give up 99 goals, but we're going to score 100. That quote actually started at Colorado Springs. The success has been there. His player development, what he did at Bethlehem Steel with the Philadelphia Union organization, the group, the foundation that he implanted in the Colorado Springs. I'm not taking anything away from James Chambers and Stevie Hogan, but that project exists because of Brendan Burke. Cano Smith knows that these guys have the ability to do it. Eventually, it will change. Why not tomorrow?
Great question. And the final question then, to add to that, regardless of what happens on this match Saturday, they have to do it all over again the next weekend, arguably with higher table stakes because it's a game of immediate consequence. Both teams very much in it from a Jägermeister perspective. What happened? Like, walk me through, you've seen this in the past. It's weird how these games are formatted with these like double header situations. How much of an impact does the result of this weekend have going into next weekend?
You know, it's funny. I actually think it's less of an impact compared to if the window was like 3 weeks and there were a couple of games in between.
So it's not here we go again?
No, I think that it's here we go again in the sense of tactics. Not a lot's going to change from game to game. Now, you're also at the point in the season where most managers aren't reinventing, right? You're trying to fine tune. Searching is certainly part of the conversation, but you know, if you're a Rhode Island fan right now, you know the team can defend. You know, there's no real issues there. You guys are stacked at the goalkeeping position, which is an absolute joke, and you want goals. Fair. Hartford Athletic have started to open up. Scoring goals left and right now, right? They can't defend for a lick. You're talking about fine-tuning areas on the field that are going to help make them better, which is why when I say the proximity of games, they're so tightly knit together, it's who's going to be best on the day. If this is like 3 weeks or a month apart, now you're talking about maybe they picked up another player, this guy's not injured anymore, he was injured and now he's back to 90 minutes fit. Oh, you know what? This is a home game. This is an away game. When it's this tight and this close, who's better on the day? That's where you're at.
Well, hopefully the fans will be entertained and everyone has a good time. That's what I care the most about. But Devon, thanks for coming on for this segment. Really appreciate your time. I look forward to you applying to the Des Moines Menace next year in the Open Cup.
Oh.
I hear that they're looking for some players. You know, like you seem like quite the bill ready to go and play for them next year. I'm really excited for that. In the meantime, where can fans reach out and know more about who you are if they don't already know everything about you?
Yep, Devon Kerr 9 and DVNKRR, Instagram and Twitter. Just remember that I have feelings too. So if you're going to yell, yell loud.
Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you guys later on Anchors Up.